All right, we're starting chapter 6, which is on slopes and rates of change. So have to remember how to plot points. Looking at a line segment, we'll be determining what the slope of it is, and then that relates into applications where that's the rate of change. And then that also helps a little bit with measurement conversions, which we've been doing for a while, but there's a couple of sections on that in this chapter. All right, so in the getting started, it's just reviewing some concepts that will be helpful in this unit. So first one, it says write each fraction in lowest terms. The first one is started for you. So basically, it started because it's giving you the new denominator. So remember, when you're putting in lowest terms, you're dividing by the same number, top and bottom. So the biggest number that goes into both of these is 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay. Sometimes your calculator might simplify for you in a way if you know how to use that, but you really need to know how to do it without a calculator. Next one, you keep the negative in front. And then what's the biggest number that goes into 12 and 15? Well, that's 3. So we divide top and bottom by 3. So that's 4 fifths, negative 4 fifths. Next one, biggest number that goes into both is 2. You always start with 2 or 3. I mean, if they're really big numbers, then you want to try to find the bigger, but maybe you do it in steps. Maybe you divide by 2 first, and then you realize, oh, it's 3 goes into both. You can do it in as many steps as needed. Next one, write each decimal as a fraction in lowest terms. The first one started for you. So you need to remember that this is the 10th digit, which means the denominator is 10. So that's 5 over 10. And then when we reduce that, 5 goes into both. So that's 1/2. B, 0.68. So that's 2 digits, 68. So there's 2 decimal places, which means it's over 100. 1 with 2 zeros. That has to match up. Then you want to reduce that. Well, for sure, 2 goes into both because they're even numbers. So I'm going to start with that. But then I notice, oh, 2 goes in again. So I could have done 4 right away, but I didn't notice it. So I'm doing it in 2 steps. So that's 17 over 25. Okay. Same with the next one, 24 over 100. That one I know 4 goes into 24 and into 100. So I'm going to divide by 4. And this is negative, so keep the negative. And then it's 8, just 1 decimal place, so 8 over 10. And then 2 goes into both. So negative 4 over 5. Okay, so those were decimals to fractions. Now we're looking at a ratio that's expressed in as a colon form, colon in between them. A ratio can be a fraction as well, but typically if it's in this form, we call it a ratio, not a fraction. So the ratio in lowest terms, so you want to look at the first numbers, right? So 2, what divided by 2 divided by what gives you 1? Obviously, divide by 2. So you have to do it to both terms. So then 6 divided by 2 is 3. So just like a fraction, both numerator and denominator gets divided by a common factor. Here, both terms get divided by a common factor. So B, I noticed that 7 goes into both, so I'm going to divide by 7. You can show it even like that if you want. So that's going to be 4 colon 3. Here, I noticed 6 goes into both, so that's going to be 2 colon 3. Negative, typically we don't have fractions with negatives, but we'll keep it in there, and then I notice 2 goes into both. So -3 to 2. Okay, multiply or divide, whatever it says here. So -6 divided by 1 is just -6. Negative times a negative is a positive. 5 times 6 is 30. A negative times a positive is a negative. 4 times 7 is 28. Negative divided by negative is a positive. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Because we're going to have to do, when we're calculating slopes, some division and multiplication with positives and negatives. Now, subtracting. So when you're subtracting a negative, you got to remember that's adding, same as adding. So -9 plus 4 is -5. Okay. Then 7, again, subtracting a negative is adding. So 7 plus 7 is 14. Now there's no two signs in between. It's just strictly -10 minus 5. So if you think about integers on a number line, with 0 there, negatives on the left. So when you're subtracting, you're going to the left. So this one, we're starting at -10, and then we're subtracting 5 more. So we're going 5 to the left. So that's going to be at -15. And then here, -8, subtracting a negative, again, is adding. So -8 plus 8 is 0. That's like being here at -8, and we're adding 8. So that goes to the right, so we end up back at 0. Okay, what are the coordinates of each point? So you have to remember, coordinates have the x value first and then the y value. And x is always the horizontal, so this is the horizontal, and this is the vertical. Okay, you can think about alphabetical order. X comes before y in the alphabet, so that's why you have to put the x value first. So here we'll start with A. So we want to look at our x value. So we go down, it's -8, and then our y value is 2. Always have a comma in between, and then these curved or round brackets. Okay, then B is here, so we go up, that's at -7, and our y is -3. C is on the x-axis, so the x value is easy to find, it's -5, and don't get confused. The y value is 0, so if you go all the way across like you did with the other ones, it's at 0. So that's called an x-intercept. It's on the x-axis, so it has a y value of 0. Then D is right here, and that has a special name. It's the origin, because that's where basically the number lines for the x-axis and the y-axis start. So it's positive on the right and upwards, negative on the left and downwards. E is a y-intercept, so the x value there is 0, but the y value is 1. F, the x value is 3, the y value is 5. G, the x value is 4, the y value is -2. Okay, so hopefully that rings a bell for you. Now we have to do the opposite and plot them ourselves. And then we're going to connect the 2 points with a straight line. So if you could get a ruler, that'd be great. I'm going to probably do a few straight ones and then just freehand some of them, because it's on the computer, it's a little slower. So A is 2, 4. So 2 for x, you go there, and then you go up to 4 for y, where they meet. Right? That's my A. Now I'm going to erase those. And then B is 6 for x and 0 for y. So it's right on the x axis. Okay. Then C is -2 for x, -1 for y. And then D is 0 for X, 5 for Y. Okay, then the next one, E is 5 for X, negative 2 for Y. F is 1 for X, negative 2 for Y. So you'll notice this is a horizontal line. Oops, that's not quite horizontal there. It's better. Because the Y values are the same. Okay, so that means it's going to be a horizontal line. Then the next one, negative 3 for X, 1 for Y. And then positive 3 for X, 6 for Y. That's H. This is G. Join them. Okay. All right, so next is solving some equations. Okay, so remember, to solve an equation, you do the opposite order of operations. So this equation was built by taking x, multiplying by 3, and getting 12. So to work backwards, we want to divide by 3. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay, so here, this one, x minus 9 was 14. So now we've got to do the opposite, which is adding 9 to both sides. So that goes to 0. So x equals 23. And you can always check it. Put it back in. 23 minus 9 is 14. Next one is x divided by 6 is 10. So that means we're going to multiply both sides by 6. I'm just going to use brackets for that. And so what happens, those divide out and give you 1. So you get 1x, which is just x, equals 10 times 6, which is 60. And you can check it. Put it back in. 60 divided by 6 is 10. Next one, adding 30. So we're going to subtract 30. So x equals 45. Okay, back in Math 10, you learned about trig. It says calculate the tangent for each angle. Well, it's showing it here anyway, tan of 83. So get your calculator out. Mine's just loading here. So in your calculator, you have to make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. So if you have a scientific calculator, then you'll just see a D or a DEG, a little D or DEG on your screen. If it says R or RAD, then you need to change to degree mode. So hopefully you remember back from Math 10, but it's a button that says D, R, and sometimes G. Graphing calculator, if you have one like mine, I need to go into it. So for a TI, I go to mode, and then third line down, make sure it's in degree mode, which mine is. Enter on that. If you have a Casio, then you have to go into system, or no, setup, I think it is. And then scroll down or look down till you see angle and make sure it's in degree. Okay, so we'll quit out of that, and then we'll take tan, so tangent of 83, close the brackets, and does it say what to round to? It doesn't, so we'll go to 2 decimal places, 8.14. No units for this, it's a ratio of sides. That's what the trig ratios are. Then tan of 5, close the brackets. Let's go to 3 decimal places in this one, 0.087. Okay, now working backwards, if you remember back from Math 10, what is the measure of each angle to the nearest degree? So you'll see basically it's telling you this is the tan ratio. So tan of theta, an angle, is 0.5317, and you're trying to find theta. So theta equals inverse tan. So in your calculator, you have to press the second key or shift key, then tan, and then 0.5317. If you have, there are certain scientific calculators where if you can't see the trig ratio word, so if you can't see tan when you press that, then you're going to have to put in the 0.5317 first, and then do shift key, tan key. Same back up for the angle ones. If you don't see the word tan in your calculator, then you have to put the angle in first and then press tan. But for the calculators that actually can print out some of the operations, it's a little bit easier. So here we'll round to the nearest whole number. It's an angle in degrees, so that would be 28 degrees. Next one. Oh, can't see it there. Okay, let me just do this first. Second, tan, and then what is it? 3.4874. 3.4874. And that would be 74 degrees. And we round it. Okay, solve each equation. So more solving equations here. First two have been solved for you. They have fractions, decimals, that kind of thing that might make it a little bit more challenging for you. So here you can see y's in the numerator. It's divided by 15. There's no y's on the other side. So we just have to multiply by 15, which is what was done here. Okay, and then those divide out to get y, and then 15 times 3/5. Well, 15 is like 15 over 1. You can use your calculator, but that I can see 5 goes into both of those. So 3 times 3 is 9, 1 times 1 is 1. So 9 over 1 is just 9. B's underneath here. So take a look at this one. The y is in the denominator. So couple of steps here. They've multiplied to get the y out. So multiplied both sides by y. So those y's divide out. And really you get 1 times 7. And then you get 1 times y times 1/4, which is kind of odd why they did it that way. Oh, I see what they did. Okay. So what they've done here is they've done the next step. So you can see it's 7 equals y times 1/4. Now we have to get y by itself. So to get rid of that 1/4, to just get y by itself here, we want to multiply by the reciprocal of 1/4, which is 4. They've kind of shown it in a little bit different way than I might. Okay, so then the 4 and the 1/4 divide out, and 4 times 7 is 28. So y equals 28. One thing that you might want to do on this here, I'm going to show you, is because it's a straight proportion, so one fraction equal to another, and our unknowns in the denominator, you can actually take the reciprocal of the whole thing. So flip both sides. You can't do it if there's any adding or subtracting. But if it's just a fraction equals a fraction, now my unknown's in the numerator. So now it's easier because I can just multiply both sides by 7. And so I'll get y equals 28 right away. So that's what I'm going to do in this one. So this is 25 over y equals one number. I'm going to make it a fraction, 5 over 1. And so now I'm going to flip the whole thing and then multiply by that denominator. So those divide out and we get y equals 25 over 5, which is just 5. Now you can do some, I skipped C. We'll go back to C. Just with regards to these fraction ones, you can do what's called cross multiplying, and we may end up doing that in some of our applications. It just kind of depends what numbers are in there, what it looks like. These ones are all just as easy to do this method, but the denominator ones, maybe rather than flipping it, we might cross multiply. Going back up to C, our denominator is 3. So multiply both sides by 3, and we get y equals, well, 1.5 times 3 is 4.5. Okay, so that's the end of the getting started. You can now start on chapter 6.1.